Then coming to conus medullaris. So conus medullaris means lesions around the vertebra L2 level. So what is the vertebral level? L2 level. So lesions around the vertebral L2 level can affect the conus medullaris, and it is known as conus medullaris syndrome. So lesions at the vertebral level L2 affect the conus medullaris, and it is known as conus medullaris syndrome. See, here the conus, so this terminates at the middle third of the L1 vertebra, but it can be located as high as the middle third of the T11 vertebra, or as low as the middle third of the L3 vertebra. So conus, it's the terminal part of the spinal cord. So this is terminating at the middle third of the L1 vertebra. Okay, it is terminating at the middle third of the L1 vertebra will be there. No, so the middle third of the L1 vertebra, what is terminating? The conus terminates at that middle third of L1 vertebra, but this can be located as high as the middle third of the T11 vertebra, or as low as the middle third of the L3 vertebra. So it can terminate either up, or it can terminate below. And so lesions around the, so if there is any lesion around the vertebral L2 level, no, so this will lead to conus medullaris, and this is known as the conus medullaris syndrome. So symptoms include, what will be the symptoms of the conus medullaris? So there will be a sudden onset severe back pain. What will be there? Sudden onset severe back pain will be there, and in the perianal region, no, there will be anesthesia will be there. Okay, in the perianal region, anesthesia will be present in the perianal region, and there will be a symmetric lower extremity motor weakness with hyperreflexia. Okay, so symmetrically what will happen? Motor weakness also will be there. Symmetric lower motor weakness with hyperreflexia, and early onset bowel and bladder dysfunction will be there. See, if patient having sudden onset back pain, perianal region sensory disturbance is there, like anesthesia is there, and early onset bowel and bladder dysfunction is there, that is urinary incontinence or fecal incontinence. So what will happen is, we have to suspect this conus medullaris syndrome, and it is a symmetric, say it's symmetric. Okay, it is symmetric lower extremity motor weakness will be there, and with hyperreflexia. So what are the known causes of conus medullaris syndrome? So the known causes of conus medullaris syndrome are the spinal fracture, disc spinal fracture, then disc herniation, tumors, trauma, epidural abscess, and infarction. So what are the causes of conus medullaris? Spinal fracture, disc herniation, tumors, trauma, epidural abscess, and infarction. So it is essential to clinically differentiate this condition from cauda equina syndrome. So we have to differentiate this conus medullaris. What is the differential diagnosis from cauda equina syndrome? So causes are similar. Okay, causes for both the conus medullaris and cauda equina are similar. Like they could be a spinal fracture, disc herniation, tumors, trauma, epidural abscess, and infarction. But in cauda equina syndrome, no, it is a severe unilateral radicular pain. It is unilateral, it's a radicular pain because all the radicals are involved, and there will be a saddle anesthesia. Here also saddle anesthesia will be there. Then asymmetric lower extremity motor weakness, here which is, it's asymmetric, but here no, that here it is in conus medullaris, it is a symmetric lower extremity weakness. Here, because of the involvement of the peripheral nerves or nerve roots, it will lead to hyporeflexia, and here the late onset bowel and bladder dysfunction will be there. So there is a late onset bowel and bladder dysfunction. So as a rule of thumb, conus medullaris syndrome, no, so this causes both upper and lower motor neuron features. Conus medullaris, okay, it's a terminal part of the spinal cord, no, so it will cause both the upper and lower motor neuron features, whereas cauda equina syndrome, no, it causes predominantly lower motor neuron features. So whenever there is a back pain, whenever there is a anesthesia in the perianal region, or whenever there is a early onset bowel bladder dysfunction, whether it is a symmetric lower extremity motor weakness or whether it is a asymmetric motor extremity weakness, and whether both upper motor lower motor neuron signs are there or only lower motor neuron signs. So that we have to keep in mind. And as a rule of thumb, no, so conus medullaris syndrome, both upper and lower motor neuron features, whereas cauda equina syndrome predominantly lower motor neuron features. So the annual incidence of both conditions is between 1.5 to 3.4 per million. So diagnosis is made by an urgent MRI with T1 and T2 sequences within an hour of presentation. So urgent MRI has to be done within an hour of presentation, and orthopedic and neurosurgical consultation is necessary, as treatment is primarily surgical with decompression via laminectomy or discectomy or sequestrectomy. So we can consult a neurosurgical consultation with decompression either by laminectomy, discectomy or sequestrectomy. So according to the Kingwell et al., there is no robust evidence to support urgent surgical intervention over non-operative management in terms of neurological outcomes. So according to Kingwell et al., no, there is no robust evidence to support urgent surgical intervention over non-operative management in terms of neurological outcomes. So also the timing of surgery does not affect neurological recovery for traumatic cases. So if there is any trauma case, no, so this timing of surgery also does not affect the neurological recovery. However, surgery may be preferable due to patient preference, shorter hospital stay, availability of nursing care and earlier rehabilitation. Posterior decompression and stabilization are generally more viable options due to reduced morbidity and surgeon familiarity. So what are the more viable options? More viable options are posterior decompression and stabilization are generally the more viable options, and it offers equivalent outcomes as anterior decompression and non-operative management. However, so this offers equivalent outcomes as anterior decompression and non-operative management. However, anterior decompression, no, so this may be beneficial in terms of bladder recovery. So particularly in cases of surgical delay, if anterior decompression is done, no, so it is beneficial in terms of bladder recovery. So tethered cord syndrome, no, so it is a condition. Tethered cord syndrome is condition caused by abnormal phylum terminale that prevents the conus medullaris from ascending, and it restricts the mobility of the spinal cord. Tethered cord, okay, so this prevents the conus medullaris from ascending, and because of this there is a restricted mobility of the spinal cord. So spinal cord will get abnormally stretched, okay, with neurological symptoms referable to the lower cord. So this it's typically diagnosed during periods of rapid growth in adolescence. It may go undiagnosed until adulthood. So instead of this ascending, no, so this conus, what will happen, it will get tethered to the spinal cord. So the spinal cord, it will get tethered, and because of this, no, stretching of the spinal cord will be there. And so this is diagnosed during periods of rapid growth, and it goes undiagnosed until adulthood. So MRI will show a low lying conus, that is, it is below the L2 vertebra, normally at the middle of the middle third of the L1 vertebra, but here it could be below the L2 vertebra, or the conus, or a thickened filum terminale. So filum terminale will be thickened. And Tubbs and Oakes suggested a cohort of patients of tethered cord syndrome in whom the conus was in the normal range, and suggested that this condition may be tautness of the cord rather than pure distal elongation. So the condition, it is due to tautness of the cord rather than the pure distal elongation, and frequently it is associated with spinal anomalies like dastomatomelia, dermal sinuses, and lipomas. So treatment is via surgical release and halts the progression of symptoms. And according to Liu et al., spinal anesthesia should be avoided in adults with tethered cord syndrome to prevent long-term neurological damage. And intramedullary lesions of the conus medullaris or numerus. So what are the intramedullary lesions of the conus medullaris? So these are numerous. Okay, so neoplastic lesions include glial tumors. So what are the tumors? Glial tumors: ependymoma, astrocytoma, and glioblastoma multiforme. So what are the glial tumors? Glial tumors are ependymoma, astrocytoma, and glioblastoma multiforme. Non-glial tumors include primitive neuroectodermal tumor and hemangioblastoma, along with lymphoma, melanoma, and metastasis. What are the non-glial tumors? So these non-glial tumors include primitive neuroectodermal tumor and hemangioblastoma, along with lymphoma, melanoma, and metastasis. Non-neoplastic lesions include granulomas such as tuberculosis and sarcoidosis, parasitic infections such as cysticercosis and schistosomiasis, demyelination in multiple sclerosis, vascular lesions such as vascular malformations, cavernoma, and amyloid angiopathy, and dysembryogenic lesions such as lipoma, dermoid cyst, epidermoid cyst, and teratoma. So what are the non-neoplastic lesions? They include granulomas, tuberculosis, sarcoidosis, parasitic infections such as cysticercosis and schistosomiasis, demyelination in multiple sclerosis, vascular lesions such as vascular malformations, cavernoma, and amyloid angiopathy, and dysembryogenic lesions such as lipoma, dermoid cyst, epidermoid cyst, and teratoma. So the incidence of intramedullary tumors in the conus is roughly 10%. So what is the incidence of intramedullary tumors in the conus? Roughly 10%, most common being myxopapillary ependymoma, which is the most common intramedullary tumor in the conus. So it is the myxopapillary ependymoma. Which one? Myxopapillary ependymoma, followed by lipoma, hemangioblastoma, and astrocytoma. So myxopapillary ependymoma, so this will be followed by lipoma, hemangioblastoma, and astrocytoma. So patients present with symptoms such as lower extremity pain, lower back pain, sensory disturbance, bowel and bladder problems, motor weakness, and saddle anesthesia. Sacral nerve root compression can cause severe perineal pain. Sacral nerve root compression, no? So because of the sacral nerve root compression, what will happen? Perineal pain. So conus tumors can cause sacral nerve root compression, similar to sciatica or cauda equina syndrome, due to degenerative disc disease, and urinary abnormalities are present in 91% of patients. So urinary abnormalities so include decreased urge to void, um, sphincter dyssynergia, and detrusor areflexia. Detrusor areflexia in cauda equina syndrome. Sphincter dyssynergia will be seen in conus medullaris, and also if there is a sensory involvement, there will be a decreased urge to void. So treatment of all tumors is primarily surgical, with complete resection achieved in roughly 81% of the patients. And the highest resection rate is the highest resection rate is 90% for ependymoma and hemangioblastoma, and it is 50 to 76% for astrocytomas. The artery of Desbrogus Cauteron can get compressed by L5-S1 disc herniation and lead to conus medullaris syndrome. So artery of Desbrogus Cauteron, okay, artery. This artery is there. It can get compressed by L5-S1 disc herniation if it is there, no. So this artery will get compressed, and this will lead to L5-S1 disc herniation. So this will lead to conus medullaris syndrome, and it's also frequently involved in arteriovenous fistulas, which can be treated by microsurgery or embolization. Spinal cord, no, so it measures 45 centimeters in the adult male, 42 centimeters in adult female. Okay, what is the spinal cord measurement? 45 in male, 42 in adult female. So it's a downward extension of medulla oblongata. After, so from foramen magnum, medulla oblongata, so this is the spinal cord. So lowermost tapering extremity of the spinal cord is called the conus medullaris, so which is around the first or second lumbar vertebra and can sometimes be lower. So upper border, no, it is poorly defined. And so conus medullaris, it's a distal tapering end of the spinal cord. So it is continuous with the epiconus. It's continuous with the epiconus. L4 to S1 segments superiorly, and consists of S2 to S5 as well as the coccygeal segment. So this conus medullaris, no, so this contains S2 to S5 as well as coccygeal segment. So superiorly, no, so above the conus it is epiconus. So epiconus is L4 to S1 segments, but here conus means S2 to S5. So because of this S2 to S5, if this conus is damaged, no, so there will be like saddle anesthesia, bowel bladder incontinence, and sexual dysfunction. Everything will be because of the involvement of this conus, which contains, so this conus, no, it contains which segments? S2 to S5. Epiconus means it contains the segments L4 to S1 segments. And the pia mater of the tapering end of the conus continues downwards as the phylum terminal. So what is the phylum terminal? Means the pia mater of the tapering end of the conus, no, so it will continue downward as the phylum terminal, so which is a delicate strand of fibrous tissue about 20 centimeters in length. So this pia mater, so which is continuing as a phylum terminal, no, so this structure serves to stabilize the spinal cord by connecting the conus to the coccyx via the coccygeal ligament. And So what is the vascular supply of the conus medullaris? It receives vascular supply via the following vessels: anterior spinal artery, two posterior spinal arteries, and one or two small arteries arise from the anterior spinal artery and circumferentially connect it with the posterior spinal arteries at the lower end of the cord. So this is called the arterial basket of the conus medullaris. So anterior spinal artery, two posterior spinal arteries, and one or two smaller arteries from the anterior spinal artery circumferentially connect with the posterior spinal arteries at the lower end of the cord. So this is called the arterial basket of the conus medullaris. So this structure is frequently involved in, so this arterial basket, it is frequently involved in arteriovenous fistulas and malformations of the conus. Radicular arteries means 8 anterior and 12 posterior arteries form longitudinal arterial trunks along with the anterior and posterior spinal arteries and supply the corresponding nerve roads. So the anterior arteries at the T1 and T11 segments levels are very large. So these are termed the arteries of Adam-Quist. Radicular arteries. Radicular arteries, how many are there? 8 anterior and 12 posterior arteries. So from where does this arise? From longitudinal arterial trunks along with the anterior and posterior spinal arteries and supply the corresponding nerve roads. Anterior arteries at the T1 and T11 segments, so these are very large. So this radicular arteries at T1 and T11 segments, so these are large. So these are termed the arteries of Adam-Quist. So this supply the lumbosacral region of the cord. So these radicular arteries are clinically important as they are end arteries. These radicular arteries are end arteries and occlusion leads to spinal cord ischemia. And then we have the artery of Desproges-Gauteron. It's an uncommon anatomic variant. So this artery of Desproges, so this arises from the iliolumbar artery. So from where does this Desproges arise? From the iliolumbar artery. So this courses along the L5 or S1 nerve roots up to the conus and anastomosis with the conal basket. Desproges, uncommon anatomic variant arising from the iliolumbar artery, courses along the L5 or S1 nerve roots up to the conus and anastomosis with the conal basket.